Welcome to the Kirby Iceberg, Tier 1, Kirby GameCube. Looking through Kirby games that have come out, we've got a game on pretty much every console. Game Boy, NES, SNES, N64, Wii, Wii U. Wait, what? We've had a mainline Kirby on every single Nintendo console except for the GameCube, but one was planned at some point. Kirby GameCube, as people tend to call it, was first shown off at E3 2005, and it looked great, but when it came time for the game to release, nothing happened. No new Kirby was shown off until 2010, with a trailer for Kirby's Epic Yarn for the Wii, so this clearly has no connection to the game shown off in 2005. What happened to Kirby GameCube? Well, the developers stated, yes, actually there are 3 lost Kirby games. The first one is the one that pictures were shown off at E3. It was a Kirby game based on the concept of 4-person simultaneous gameplay. That was when I learned how difficult it was to make a game that is both multiplayer and single player. Future Kirby games would have built on this concept, having 4-player co-op like in Return to Dreamland and Star Allies, but ultimately this GameCube set of Kirby games were scrapped. And yeah, set of Kirby games. Multiple were planned. We do know a bit more about what these games entailed, like some concept art was shown off that includes some characters and features that were used way later in the franchise. Specifically, Morpho Knight was kind of insane to see here. This is concept art from 2005. Morpho Knight wasn't in a game until 2018. We've also got some screenshots from these early builds, my personal favorite being of Kirby looking off at these mountains, but unfortunately most of the stuff we see that they were working on ended up getting scrapped, and we wouldn't see in future Kirby games. But who knows? Morpho Knight ended up coming back 13 years later, so there's still a decent chance that they reused some ideas from this old set of scrapped GameCube games. Mario cameos and Kirby Superstar. Just like most Nintendo games, a lot of them connect in different ways, Kirby and Mario having a bit of a special connection in Kirby Superstar. To start, there's Mario characters in the audience for fighting King Dedede. There's Mario, Toad, Shy Guy, Peach, and on the other end we've got Wario and Luigi. In the Megaton Punch Championship, we even see Birdo in the background. There's a Gold Mario as well, as a stone ability for Kirby. And lastly, there's tons of different Nintendo references in the treasures, from multiple franchises. There's Metroid, Mario, F-Zero, Donkey Kong, Earthbound, and even Zelda treasures. And, well, Bullet Bill's being in the Kabula fight. This game has a lot of references to other Nintendo franchises, Mario definitely not being the only one. I'll talk about some more crazy ties between Kirby and other franchises later in the video. The Butterfly. This is where we get into the kind of really weird parts of Kirby. Kirby's a kid's game, right? I mean, that's what it's portrayed as. Well, the lore is kind of insane for a supposed kid's game, and one of the strangest parts of it is a butterfly. In the intros to multiple Kirby games, this butterfly shows up, just flying around, showing how peaceful and serene life can be. Well, that all changed in 2018, when Kirby Star Allies released. We saw the return of Galactonite, a character that first appeared in a sub-game in Kirby Superstar Ultra. And this is a big deal. We've only seen this character a handful of times, and oh, he was killed by a butterfly. Maybe? The butterfly takes Galactonite and transforms them into Morpho Knight, seemingly killing the previous Galactonite, and transforms them into Morpho Knight, a butterflied amalgamation of Galactonite. You defeat it and get to fight it again, as arguably one of the hardest bosses in the franchise, in Kirby and the Forgotten Land, as the true final boss of the game. The butterfly's role has changed quite a bit since earlier appearances, and now it's a bit of a joke for Kirby fans that anytime they see a butterfly, it brings back some past traumas of this fight. Crowned Flower Program Friends New World. The names of different levels in Kirby games often spell out an acronym or word. Starting off with Kirby's Adventure and its remake, Nightmare in Dreamland, if you put the first letters of the first 7 levels all together, you get VIBGYOR, or in reverse, Roy G. Biv, every color in the rainbow. The colors also correlate with the levels. Take B for example. It's for Butler Building. You know what color is the background for Butler Building? Blue. Yeah, it's a really neat sort of Easter egg, and this trend continues for multiple other Kirby games, each of them having their own unique variations of it. John Kirby. You may remember from my previous video, or just know already, but Donkey Kong's name was in legal trouble in 1984. With the similarity of Donkey Kong and King Kong, Universal argued that DK's name infringed on the copyright, so Nintendo needed someone to defend them in court. This someone was John Kirby. John Kirby ended up winning the case for Nintendo and basically saved Donkey Kong. He ended up staying and helping Nintendo for a good number of years, and in a show of gratitude, Shigeru Miyamoto named the character of Kirby after him. Nintendo also gave John Kirby a sailboat named Donkey Kong. Unfortunately, John Kirby passed away in 2019 at the age of 79, but he'll always be remembered as the Kirby. Meta Knight's face. People really freaked out seeing Meta Knight's face in 2018's Star Allies, but this wasn't the first time we got to see under Meta Knight's mask. This was actually the 7th. Yeah, we get to see Meta Knight's face as early as 1993 with Kirby's Adventure. The actual who and what of Meta Knight is still kind of mysterious and up for debate. We know they're a sort of anti-hero, and they look extremely similar to Kirby under the mask, but we don't know what exactly they are. There seems to be a connection between the two, whether it be a familial bond or just same species, we don't know. Bad endings. There's endings to Kirby games you can get that are just bad. Not like an ending isn't good overall as in its story, I mean endings changing depending on what you've done throughout the game. The first one of these bad endings we can see is in Kirby's Dream Land 2. If Kirby defeats King Dedede in Dark Castle without collecting all the rainbow drops first, once Dedede goes down, Kirby poses and is all happy he won. After, things change a bit. A cutscene plays where Kirby walks back home in the rain with an umbrella in hand, and his 3 animal friends following behind. Below this scene, an enemy lineup is shown, containing every single boss and enemy in the game. At the end of this lineup, there's a silhouette of dark matter with the name ! Implying that something was missed. From there, the end is displayed as the party walks off screen. Kine, the sunfish, trails behind them and pauses in the middle of the screen for a second. He looks up and a question mark is added to the end text. He waddles off the stage, and then the game resets. This happens in a few other Kirby games as well. Kirby's Block Ball, Dream Land 3, 64, and even Star Allies. Some franchises will have some different endings depending on what you do, but not a whole lot are as consistent at having bad endings as the Kirby franchise. USA covers. There's a really weird trend with box art for Kirby. Most of the time, the Japanese covers are always cheerful, stereotype Kirby, just smiling and having a great time. But when it comes to the covers for America, Kirby's much more intimidating looking. I mean, it is Kirby, so, he can't look that intimidating, but he's trying to clearly look more tough than the other regions. Personally, and I know a lot of other people feel this way, I like the Japanese style way more. It really feels like the box art for the American versions of the games is just worse. It's not as obvious with the Kirby franchise, I mean, these are pretty near identical, but one of my favorite examples to bring up is with a game called Ico for the PS2. What is that? On the left. That is the American cover. Significantly worse than the Japanese. I don't know why, but it seems like most games that come from Japan to America, the Japanese cover is just infinitely better. Stone ability references. Kirby's stone ability often references other games, some of which aren't related to Kirby at all. There's some like this that are just a more niche reference to other Kirby games, being Grill from Star Stacker and Brobo from Block Ball. There's more niche characters like those. Then we've got some common ones, like the car transformation already being referenced in Return to Dreamland Deluxe. Big characters like Dedede also show up as stone variants, and as I mentioned earlier, there's some from other Nintendo franchises, like a Golden Mario and Golden Samus stone variant. Pretty much whenever Kirby has a stone ability, there's going to be some odd reference when he uses it. Kirby has unlimited power. In both the Japanese and English versions of Planet Robobot, so it's not some translation error, Kirby is described as having infinite power. This most likely means infinite power in the sense of being able to take anything's power, like fire, ice, stairs in Forgotten Land, but some fans have taken it into a literal sense. Some believe in lore that Kirby literally has infinite power, an almost godlike amount. This next bit is a mix of a ton of different entries. I don't know what to call it other than the extremely weird side of Kirby lore. Dark matter first gets introduced in Dreamland 2. Dark matter is a cosmic force that gets rid of positivity and infects the minds of the innocents. Planet Popstar, Kirby's planet, being a popular place to go since it's so filled with positivity. So, like said, dark matter can infect people. They infected King Dedede in Dreamland 2 and made him do everything evil that he did. When you defeat Dedede, granted you have all the required rainbow drops, Kirby gets the Rainbow Sword. The appearance of the sword forces dark matter out of DDD's body, dark matter appearing as a flying eyeball surrounded by black, and with dark matter emerging and Kirby having the Rainbow Sword, you get to fight dark matter up in space. The same thing happens in Dreamland 3, but it's a little bit different. While we know dark matter is using DDD, we don't physically see them leave his body, at least not for a little bit. Instead, we see DDD's body be used to a point where I doubt many characters, or, anything living, could survive. I mean, a set of teeth spawns out of DDD's stomach, ripping him open, so it's a bit violent. Another attack we can see here is where a bit of the form of dark matter is popping out of DDD's stomach, shooting these masses of black projectiles at Kirby, possibly being parts of itself, while still sporting his creepy eye form from Dreamland 2. Once defeated, if you've collected everything needed, like in Dreamland 2, you get the Love Stick. Weird name, but it does a similar thing to the Rainbow Sword. It lets you fight dark matter, this time in the Hyper Zone, a creepy otherworldly place with black clouds rushing through the blue background. This time, once you defeat dark matter, something extra happens. You get to confront dark matter's creator, a being with godlike power simply named Zero, a massive red eye. Zero fights Kirby by sending out multiple other dark matters at him, not only shooting out dark matters, but blood. Blood from the eyeball. If you successfully go through the fight without dying, Zero takes a last resort. Their eyeball bursts and hemorrhages from its socket to chase you down until it explodes in blood. So, what? Yeah, for some reason this game has more gore than any Nintendo game normally does, which is a bit shocking. But the set of these creepy villains, who are oddly gory, doesn't end here. In fact, Zero doesn't end here. In Kirby 64, we're introduced to Zero 2, a form of Zero reborn, with red wings and a halo above its head, taking an angelic form. Some would believe this is the spirit of Zero, being its wrath, but as we saw at the end of the initial fight with Zero, it shoots out its inner eye as a last-ditch effort to kill Kirby, but I could see this also as a partial distraction. A massive form of Zero still seemed to float off into the rest of the Hyperzone, and even if that isn't the case, looking at Zero 2's form, it's certainly more than just a spirit. It's really a full-blown rebirth of this red-eyed entity. Zero 2 stopped fighting with its blood in the fight against Kirby in 64, but when hit, still bleeds profusely. Kirby, of course, defeats Zero 2, but there's still questions to be had about dark matter and its creator. Dark matter is implied to still be around. I mean, Gooey is a offshoot of dark matter, being the same species. But while dark matter doesn't physically seem to appear, they're not gone. In a way, we see them in 2018. 2018 Star Allies made the overall lore of Kirby a lot bigger, but makes a bit more sense. In Star Allies, you fight a Void Termina, a being who was trying to be revived by Highness throughout the entire game. This Void Termina is powerful too. Void is made up of these different hearts that can take over someone's mind and seem to have a mind of their own. Void being made of hundreds of these hearts. At the end, Highness ended up giving himself to Termina to revive it, and the plan worked. Void Termina was revived and is one of the most powerful villains in the franchise, possibly even being a familiar face. It's theorized, and honestly kind of confirmed at this point with how much evidence there is, that Void Termina is tied directly to dark matter. In the rant by Highness, he states, "Your future is farce. You have none. We, masters of a matter most dark." Aside from the practical name drop, the fight with Void Termina has tons of different references to dark matter, like starting with the flooring. It's the same flooring from Dark Star in 64, the different faces of Void's soul are from 64, and in the background splash screen for Void appearing, it's just the same background as the fight with dark matter in Dreamland 3. I mean, every aspect of Void seems to be a tie to dark matter, but does this mean it's simply a reincarnation of dark matter? Not exactly. In the pause screen for boss fights, we get lore about who we're fighting. Like in Star Allies, with the second phase of the Soul Melter EX version of Void. It states that Void exists in all dimensions, but that's just the English version. For some reason, the localization team took out a very important part in the Japanese version. That part that was taken out reads, "Dreams, darkness, soul, heart. All chaos and possibilities assemble within its substance, being born as the origin and ancestor of all." So not only does this point to Void being the origin of dark matter, it points to Void being the origin of all matter. In the pause screen lore for Void's soul, it reads, Void Termina may rise again in other forms, depending on whether positive or negative energy is gathered. It seems this being of darkness will wander the galaxy until one day he is reborn into a new existence. When he returns, hopefully it will be as a friend. So Void Termina has been shaped, seemingly with negative energy, and this is confirmed by the description for Phase 2. Hatred, obsession, jealousy, greed. The darkness gathered by Highness is transformed into a corrupt power within Void Termina that conflicts with its newly forged soul, meaning that Highness's negative emotion towards the reincarnation of Void made it what we fought. Made it this villain. Void is inherently neither good or bad, and what the most interesting part of Void is, comes from their final pause screen. The final battle at hand. Void takes his first steps towards a new age. In place of tyrannical rage, will he find nap time? Gentle breezes? Treats? He may even dream again. A dream of friends reunited. This very much points to Void being Kirby. The face Void makes at the end of the game is clearly Kirby's, and even when dying it has the same star effect as Kirby has when using the friend abilities throughout the game. Void is also dark matter though, as previously stated. Void has created a sort of family tree that contains Kirby and the driving force for evil for Kirby. In a way, Kirby is fighting himself, being a piece of dark matter. And it's not like this was just thrown in with star allies either. I believe that the Batamons, they're called in Dreamland 3, were possibly an early form of this representation. They hide throughout levels normally not accessible to the player, and look just like Kirby, possibly being a relative in some way. Since Kirby we now know is a spawn of Void, Void is a father in a way to dark matter, and these could have been possibly hints as to what Kirby is, a being with near infinite power. No wonder Kirby was the one to save everyone in Smash Ultimate. Shiver Star is post-apocalyptic Earth. Shiver Star is a fifth world in Kirby 64, a place that looks eerily close to Earth. I mean, looking at it from its outside, that's just Africa on the texture, that's Europe, but the whole place is frozen over. It's even got a single orbiting moon. So we know almost for certain that this place was at one point Earth, but what happened to the people who live there? What happened to us? Well, on the Nintendo of Japan website, it states, all of the people who originally called Shiver Star their home had to abandon it because of intense, uninhabitable cold. Aside from the planet looking the exact same as ours, but white and gray, and our moon being there, left over on the planet are abandoned factories, still running from leftover machinery. I think it's pretty much confirmed that this planet used to be Earth. Tier 2. Kirby. Kirby's a weird character. Yeah. Kirby, not Kirby. They first appeared in Kirby's Dream Course, where Player 2 got to play as a yellow variant of Kirby, and the development team for this game nicknamed this yellow Kirby Kirby, a play on words for the Japanese word for yellow. Well, Kirby got to return in Kirby's Dream Buffet as a color variant for Kirby, but after that, gone. Literally, Kirby has been wiped out of Kirby lore. They appeared in multiple games as color variants, but never actually named Kirby, meaning the last appearance of our yellow Kirby lookalike, not counting color variants because he was his own character at one point, was in Kirby's Dream Course. Just one appearance of them as their own character in 1994, but at least they've become an adored character despite hardly ever showing up. Kirby Cafe. Kirby Cafe is an entirely Kirby-themed restaurant in Japan. It's really well done, like all the decorations are Kirby-themed, all the food is, but it's known for being extremely hard to get into. Since it's so massively popular, you need to get a reservation and sometimes it can be months out to get. They've also got a whole bunch of Kirby merch in the restaurant. There's not a whole lot to say about this one. Aside for me, not living in Japan, it's kind of crazy seeing how popular Kirby is over there. For most parts of the world, Kirby's a known franchise, but in Japan, it is an entirely different level of popular. It's really cool if you can get to go to this cafe, but considering its popularity, it's extremely hard to get into. Master Hand and Crazy Hand cameos. Sakurai, this guy, is the director of Kirby and Smash Bros. Master Hand and Crazy Hand first appeared in the Smash Bros. Franchise, the original Smash introducing Master Hand, and Crazy Hand making an appearance in Smash Melee. Well, these two magical hand enemies would later appear in Kirby as well, in Kirby and the Amazing Mirror. Both of them show up as bosses you can fight. The Crazy Hand, not really acting crazy. Honestly, the moveset is pretty much the same as a Master Hand, but it's still sick they get an appearance in this game. The reason I mentioned Sakurai is there's a bit of a trend with him where he likes to do a lot of crossovers. Nintendo's known for doing crossovers, but he made Smash. That is the game of crossovers. So it's not shocking that he'd take the main bad guys of the Smash Bros. Franchise and throw them into a Kirby game. Also, the video I'm using for the background footage right now is from the newest Air Riders Direct that Sakurai talks in. This video should be going out the 15th, Saturday, and the game comes out the 20th. So tell me how you like it, if you got into this video because of that. Anyways, back to Master Hand and Crazy Hand. Their attacks were inspired by Wham Bam Rock from Kirby Superstar, with the very clear big hands for attacks. And yeah, this design for the character didn't really work out. Many years later, when Kirby Superstar Ultra came out, Wham Bam Rock got a redesign, looking way more like a rock than whatever they were trying to do with that weird old design. Kirby's Adventure ad with epic yarn art style. Nintendo likes to have different style twists on their games, specifically with craft materials. Yoshi's got Crafted World and Woolly World, Mario's got a whole paper franchise at this point, and Kirby's got Kirby's Epic Yarn, a standard Kirby game but made out of yarn. And this is cool. I personally love these weird style of games, but this style didn't come from other craft-like games. It actually originated with Kirby. Sort of. The original Japanese trailer for Kirby's Adventure just had the weird yarn outline style. They only decided to make a game in this style almost 18 years later. But technically, looking at this old trailer, it precedes the Paper Mario franchise, which is the sort of official start of this whole craft series of games. Kirby's Dream Course copy protection feature. Kirby's Dream Course had a very unique copy protection feature, or anti-piracy. Basically, to play through the entire game, Kirby needs tomatoes to fill up their shot count, and if it detects that your game is pirated, it just won't refill your meter, meaning Kirby will lose lives over time and eventually die. But instead of getting to retry from the last point you die, it deletes your whole save. Even if you get to course 2, somehow, the game will crash in its animation to get there and delete the save anyways. It's for sure one of the most unique anti-piracy measures, and I'm kinda shocked that not as many games have done this gimmick for anti-piracy. Anti-Kirby. Anti-Kirbys are hostile enemies in Link's Awakening. They're encountered in the first floor of Eagle's Tower and described as Kirby's evil twins in the player's guide of the game. They attack by attempting to inhale Link like a normal Kirby does, and that's kinda all we've got with this anti-Kirby. They don't really do much aside from appear out of nowhere in Link's Awakening, but they make for a super unique enemy. It'd be sick to see these guys come back in a future Kirby game, but unfortunately, I doubt it. Kirby's Dream Land 2 Naked Lady. While playing Kirby's Dream Land 2, you may notice this, Easter egg, I guess you can call it. I can't say a whole lot about this. I don't think it's explicit enough for YouTube to have some issue with it, but it's certainly an Easter egg that was put in by the developers. If you're an audio viewer, it resembles a naked lady. Tier 3, Kid Kirby. Kid Kirby is a cancelled SNES game. It was being developed by DMA Design, a Scottish company that went on to turn into Rockstar North, the makers of GTA. If Kid Kirby had come out, it would have been the only Kirby game to be developed by a non-Japanese studio. The story of this Kid Kirby was never fully completed, but we do know a little bit of what it was going to be like. We would have followed a younger Kirby, who looked a lot different from what we have now, being a more purple-colored Kirby with a weird twirl on their head. The Kirby was also internally referred to as Jelly, so that's their unofficial name. Some other characters from the Kirby franchise would return as well, like King Dedede, who would have been known as Prince Dedede at the time. Also, Bronto Burt would return, the Star Rod, and the Fountain of Dreams would return as well, all being seen in early concept art. But the rest of the art seems to be unique to Kid Kirby, some of which we still have, being a weird sort of fire spirit, a mole, who, I'll get into that in a minute, has got a complicated story, an unnamed octopus enemy that seems to have been the main bad guy of the game, and even an entire level for the game was made, and we have an image for it. It's unfortunate the game never made it to release, but looking at some of this concept art and considering there's only one level, it was probably in a pretty early prototype phase. So that mole I mentioned, bit of a weird story with it. It was believed that Hard Hat, a boss from the Game Boy Donkey Kong Land, was intended to appear in Kid Kirby. Yeah, this mole had nothing to do with Kirby. It was an enemy from Donkey Kong Land, and was seemingly set to appear in Kid Kirby. The confusion of this whole thing started in 2012. An auction revealed images from a 1995 Nintendo sourcebook that was given to retailers to promote upcoming releases. Both Donkey Kong Land and Kid Kirby used a similar looking CG art, and appeared on the same page, with little distinction between the two. This was the only source of Kid Kirby promotional art for years, and due to Donkey Kong Land's relative obscurity at the time, viewers mistook it for Kirby artwork. It wasn't until 2019 when a user from the website DK Vine discovered the mysterious art being used in Donkey Kong Land's instruction manual is when the debate ended. For this entire 7-year span, people really thought this mole was from Kid Kirby, but it turns out it was just a confusion in art style. Kracko remembers past experiences. In Kirby Fighters Deluxe, when you pause on the Kracko boss fight, you get this little bit of lore. Did you think I'd forget? The time you smashed me with your high jump? The time I was betrayed by helpers? Or when I was replaced by the mechanical cloud? There's something in my eye. So Kracko actually remembers past encounters, something we don't see too often. And this page of lore you get when pausing in a boss fight isn't unique to Kracko alone. In many bosses throughout the games, whenever you pause, you get a good chunk of lore for them. It's just crazy that Kracko seems to remember past gameplay interactions when almost no other Kirby characters do. Daroche's 300 plus lines. The character Daroche was the main guide for Kirby throughout Kirby Mass Attack on the DS, and in this game he became the Kirby character with the most lines in the entire franchise, having more than 300 lines. Not counting anything the character wrote, like different things in the instruction booklet. Just by far, this is the character to have the most lines of dialogue in the entire franchise, and was from a single game. He's also going to be in Air Riders. Crazy pick for a character to be in there, but we'll get to see him again. Po-Po-Po and Twinkle Po-Po. Kirby's original name wasn't Kirby. At first, the character was going to be named Po-Po-Po, and was going to star in Twinkle Po-Po, the game. Why it ended up changing is kind of split in two. Nintendo tends to make things more violent looking, like with the box art changes, or just less cute for the Western market, and presumably because of John Kirby saving Donkey Kong, they saw this as an opportunity to change Po-Po-Po's name into Kirby, and it was most likely beneficial for the Western market as well. So originally, we were gonna have to say Po-Po-Po every time when referring to Kirby. I am so glad they changed it. I've already said Po-Po-Po way too much in this video. Epic Yarn was originally not gonna be a Kirby game. Kirby's Epic Yarn wasn't originally gonna be a Kirby game. Originally, it started as a new game called Fluff's Epic Yarn, starring Prince Fluff, the character that did end up making it into the final game. They were changed into Kirby, but Prince Fluff returned as Kirby's sidekick in the 2-player mode of the game. The Kirby version, the final game, didn't change much at all from what the game was originally going to look like. Nintendo suggested turning the project into a Kirby game, and after a test with the developers replacing the main characters, they agreed. The only thing that gets brought up that may have been different between the final release is that it was going to be, quote, a feel-good game. Which, I mean, Kirby is a feel-good game, so I can't imagine it got changed too much. Kirby Red Diamond. Kirby Red Diamond is a bootleg Game Boy Advance game released in the mid-2000s. It's a Pocket NES conversion of Kirby's Adventure, and it was thought to have been lost or obscure Kirby media back when it was beginning to appear on online auctions in the early 2000s. If the sellers or seller was ever asked a question about the game though, they immediately took the listing down, making it super hard to get any information on it. Nintendo was eventually contacted about the game and confirmed it was a knockoff, but at the time a lot of people thought this was some type of prototype game that got out there. Once booted up, the game displays an image of Kirby running across the screen with the title reading, Red Diamond Kibby's Star. Then it fades to another image of a poorly drawn Kirby, loosely based on the title screen sprite, and reveals itself to be nothing more than a pirated copy of Kirby's Adventure. Like a lot of other games like this, you can't save your game at all, so if you're gonna play it, you've gotta do it on one playthrough. Flying Rocket Pig. This is Flying Rocket Pig, a Chinese ripoff of Kirby, and it's really weird. Since it's not technically Kirby, it's a flying pig, you can't float in the air at all. And, well, it's a mobile game, so there's quite a bit of monetization, including having you watch ads mid-level to progress. It's also got an energy mechanic, which is just the bane of mobile games. It's really, overall, just a terrible knockoff with microtransactions, but got really popular over in China. Ghost Trap. Kirby's Avalanche, or is known in Europe, Kirby's Ghost Trap, is a puzzle Kirby game for the SNES. It was released in America and Europe in February of 1995, and is basically just a Western release of the Japanese Super Puyo Puyo game, just with characters from the Kirby series instead. And this game is pretty cool, but it stands out as the only Kirby game to not be released in Japan. In fact, the only other news about this game post-release was that it was going to be put on the Virtual Console in 2007, but even that was just for Europe and Australia on the Wii. It was also re-released on the Nintendo Classic service on the day before my 18th birthday, July 21st, 2022. But yeah, even though it's on the Classic service, there's still no Japanese version of the game out there. Kirby was a placeholder. Kirby's design is simple, to say the least. Kirby's just a cute blob character. He's simply a blob, and originally he wasn't going to be. This design of Kirby that we have to this day was a placeholder created by Sakurai for Kirby's Dream Land, but since the design team grew so fond of the simple blob-like sprite, they decided to keep it instead of replacing it with the intended protagonist. It's just crazy looking at the different parts of creating Kirby. It seems like everything along the way ended up getting changed from its initial vision. Originally, Kirby was going to have a completely different design, ended up using a prototype that was just a blob. He was going to be named Popopo, ended up changing that based off of a surprise lawsuit case. I mean, everything in the making of this franchise seems to be happy little accidents that turned into a crazy franchise. Samus and Metroid cameo in Kirby's Dream Land 3. Kirby as a franchise has tons of crossovers. I mean, the entirety of Smash honestly just feels like a Kirby game. I swear half the items are from Kirby, but since it's Nintendo and they already reference other franchises so much by default, Kirby gets to go crazy with it. Like in Kirby's Dream Land 3, Samus and the Metroids just show up in the game. In the Iceberg section for the game, nice, Stage 2 specifically, there's Metroids that you can capture throughout the level. If you don't capture all the Metroids, Samus will show up at the end of the level, wearing her helmet, not giving you anything. But if you do capture all the Metroids, she's there with her helmet off and gives you a heart star. It's a nice nod to the Metroid franchise and feels kind of out of nowhere. I mean, it's just a random crossover completely featuring the protagonist of Metroid. Question mark, question mark, question mark, Tack Planet. Triple question mark is the hidden star and bonus stage in Milky Way Wishes, a sub-game in Kirby Superstar. It's a very strange planet, often called Tack Planet with all the tack enemies scattered about. There's also bomber enemies, but not nearly as many. There's no fountain here, and it's an extremely short level. It's also required for 100%ing the game. This planet is by far one of the most interesting parts of the game in my opinion. I mean, it could just be me, but the color palette and it being a hidden section is so odd, so alien. Even the second part of the world is just blue and black, and at the end of the level, it doesn't even have a surface. It's just a hidden star. So I doubt we'll see anything with this planet ever return, but it's for sure one of the most interesting secret places throughout any Kirby game. Dreamland 2 Orca Room. In Red Canyon, stage 5 of Dreamland 2, there's 2 Easter eggs. The first one is the woman I showed earlier, and the second can be found in a dark room, where using Spark Kine reveals a poster of an orca. This seems to be a reference to the boss Acro, who would later appear in Dreamland 3, but we don't know for sure. My guess is they were probably working on this boss, and then just ended up moving its development to be in the next game. Acro would also go on to be my personal favorite boss, but it also got to be referenced in a good number of games in the franchise, like, well, in Dreamland 2, being a boss in 3, but reappeared in Kirby 64, being a boss again. He'd be referenced in Smash Brawl and would appear in Planet Robobot as well, being a mecha version of itself. Just a nice little Easter egg pointing to something that no one knew what it was yet. Kirby's Toy Box. Kirby's Toy Box is a series of Kirby sub-games made for the SNES's Satellaview satellite network. It was a Japanese exclusive made in 1996. The games were pretty cool as well. Starting off with the first 2-player game, there was Kirby Baseball, a very simple baseball minigame, but this game could technically run forever. There was no time limit, so as long as Kirby never got 3 outs, you kept going. Most of the other games weren't too special. There was Pinball, Guru Guru Ball, Cannonball, the Arranging Balls game, I've noticed a trend here, Slingshot, and Ball Rally, and most of them were kinda similar. But the last one, Starbreak, was a bit more complex, at least in its quality, I suppose. It's a standard breakout game, but in this version, Kirby is the ball. Kirby gets launched up on a trampoline, being held by 2 Rick hamsters, the best Kirby character, and once you beat the first 5 stages, King Dedede appears on stage 6. But this time there's no blocks, so you have to keep launching Kirby at Dedede enough times to defeat him. It's for sure the best minigame in the toy box. Also, Rick is in it, so it's 10 times better. And he's also going to be in Air Riders. Sweet Potato. The Sweet Potato item, in the Japanese versions of Kirby, got localized to Mint Leaf for Western Kirby fans. It's a bit silly why they made this change as well. In Japan, sweet potatoes are often served hot and cause hiccups. being known for that, hence giving Kirby the air ability in the games. But for the West, we don't really have that. Or at least it's not nearly as popular, so Kirby's air ability was swapped to a minty breath from the mint leaf. Yeah, every time this pops up in a game, even the most recent ones, it's completely swapped model and name for the Western release. Tier 4. Mini Kirby was planned an adventure. In Kirby's Adventure, unused sprites for a smaller Kirby can be found, suggesting that there was plans for a copy ability where Kirby shrunk, and Sakurai confirmed this in a 1993 interview. So this didn't end up making it into the game, but we know it was planned. We did, however, see this ability appear later in the franchise, although it was much later than intended. The first and final appearance of the Mini Kirby ability was in Kirby and the Amazing Mirror that came out in 2006. It took them 13 years, but Kirby finally got the ability. Kirby and Earthbound. Outside of some of the more blatant references between franchises, like Mr. Saturn from Earthbound being a treasure in Kirby, there's one that blurs the line as a crossover. It's more of a weird development thing. Earthbound and Kirby were both made by HAL Laboratories, so Kirby's Dream Course and Earthbound were being made alongside each other. So as probably an Easter egg, the team working on Earthbound used Kirby as the selection indicator in the debug screen, so Kirby is technically in Earthbound. Manga Marks with hands. Marks, this cute little puffball, normally doesn't have hands. His design throughout the games has been that way forever, but in the Kirby manga, it's different. They gave him hands, and it's just kind of creepy. The idea of Marks having hands is fine, but all the images with him, he's always looking odd. I don't know, every frame I could find of it was just always slightly off-putting, more than Marks normally is. Japanese only Kirby's Dream Course introduction. The Japanese version of Kirby's Dream Course has an exclusive opening, and I'll read off what Kirby says in it. It's not super long. A small country on a small planet. This is the peaceful dreamland. Today, Kirby is living his leisurely, carefree life. Then at night, ... I wonder if I'll have another dream tonight, gazing up at the stars. Huh? Something seemed odd. Usually there were many stars twinkling brightly in the sky, but tonight, only one of the stars had appeared. From then on, those lonely evenings continued for many days. Kirby worried about the missing stars, staring up at the night once again. What? Just then, he caught King Dedede stealing the only remaining star. To restore the beautiful stars to Dreamland's night sky, Kirby takes off after Dedede. Your goal is to get to King's Castle. I wonder if I'll have another dream tonight, gazing up at the stars. So yeah, kinda crazy that this was completely cut from all non-Japanese versions of the game, especially considering that Kirby talks in it. Like, that never happens. It's extremely rare seeing that. There's times here and there, but dialogue like this, where Kirby's full-blown having a conversation, this is very rare. It just seems odd that this was only in the Japanese version. Dead Kirby pause screen. This pause screen is an unused wait state for Nightmare in Dreamland, when Kirby was knocked out in multiplayer, and it's a bit violent. Yeah, Kirby is surrounded in a pool of blood. Definitely not what I was expecting researching this entry. This is a placeholder, so it wasn't used in the final game, but it was in it for a good amount of development. From what I could find, the text around it translates to something along the lines of, to have one's soul liberated from worldly regrets and desires, and another part of the text being a Buddhist concept of transferring consciousness that can be associated with death. Yeah, this isn't any ketchup or anything. Kirby was just dead here. Kirby Bowl 64. Kirby Bowl 64, also called Kirby Ball 64, was a cancelled Kirby game for the N64. It was the first ever Kirby title shown for the N64, as well as one of the first ever games shown for the system. It was later changed into Kirby's Air Ride, which, if the title seems a little bit off, it was reworked into Kirby Air Ride, just getting rid of the S in the name, and then going to be released on the GameCube. We don't know a whole lot about what this Kirby Bowl 64 was going to be like, but we do know that there was going to be two main modes. One with the Sphere Kirby that we have a couple of seconds of footage of, then also there's a 4-player mode, which had you knocking each other out of the big bowl. There's also a mode where Kirby was riding either a snowboard or airboard, and that seemed to be the inspiration for turning it into Air Ride. Spear of Longinus and Swiss Army Needle. HAL Labs, makers of Kirby, are notoriously big Evangelion fans. I didn't know this until making videos on a lot of Japanese franchises, but Evangelion kinda had a similar impact that Star Wars did to the West, but to the East. Multiple references and inspired designs from Evangelion can be seen throughout different Kirby games. Like in the beta build for Kirby 64, the Spear of Longinus, from Evangelion was in the Needle ability, or Swiss Army Needle. Also, we can see tons of very inspired from Evangelion designs in key aspects of Kirby. Different designs for locations, important characters. Evangelion is a massive inspiration for a lot of different parts of the Kirby franchise. It's insane to see that Void Termina is inspired by the first angel in Evangelion. It's just crazy to see such an important character to the lore be directly inspired off another IP. 255 lives in Amazing Mirror. In Kirby and the Amazing Mirror, the lives counter only goes up to 99, so you'd assume you could only have that amount of lives, right? Well, no. While the visual of the counter stops at 99, the actual max amount of lives you can have is at 255. It won't show you going up at all past the 99 life mark, but you can go up, and you can go up to 255. Special T-Shot. Special T-Shot is a golf game for the Super Famicom, released only on Satellaview. It's not a part of the Kirby series, but holds a very important connection to it, being the entire basis for Kirby's Dream Course. Special T-Shot was an in-house project of Nintendo that was originally planned to be released as a cartridge for the SNES or Super Famicom, but while development of the game was apparently near completion, Nintendo chose to completely redesign and rebrand it. The result was that HAL Laboratory was commissioned to make Kirby's Dream Course in collaboration with Nintendo EAD, the specific part of Nintendo that was working on it, using the engine and general gameplay design of Special T-Shot as a base. So Kirby's Dream Course would be released, but despite the initial cancellation of Special T-Shot, the game was eventually finalized and released, meaning in some ways it's sort of a beta for Dream Course, a predecessor. It's something we hardly ever see in gaming. They're entirely separate, but both started from the same thing. You can see the whole premise of the games is similar, but they just split off in a really weird way. While we know it was released on the Satellaview in Japan, we don't know the exact date. It was at some time between 1996 and 1999. That's when the game was available for download. And it seems like this game was sort of thrown away in Nintendo history. Neither Nintendo or HAL have mentioned the game since release. In 2019, a prototype cartridge with a 1992 date was discovered and dumped online. That's the footage I've been playing for this entry. This prototype was probably the last version of the game before HAL took over and split off to make it a Kirby game. Waddle Doo's death animation in Kirby's Block Ball. Waddle Doo was originally going to be in Kirby's Block Ball. How do we know? Well, there's an unused animation of him running and one of him dying. Yeah, in this animation that's on screen right now, Waddle Doo's eyeball pops out of its socket. Needlessly violent. They didn't have to do that to Waddle Doo, but now he's dead. Tier 5. Please die for our god. When you're about to fight Highness and Kirby Star allies, he goes off in a ramble before shouting at Kirby to please disappear forever, in the English version. But in Japanese, Chinese, and Korean, he shouts at Kirby to please die for our god. Insane line to see in a Kirby game, but considering all the lore with dark matter I talked about earlier, it kinda fits for this section. Mario and Kirby Masterpiece OVA. There's an educational OVA sorta crossover between Kirby and Mario. It's extremely rare to come across in person and has two different educational stories within it. One of Kirby, one with Mario. It was released in 1995, despite looking much older, and was actually the first time Kirby ever had a voice in the franchise. And there's not a whole lot to say about this other than Kirby did speak in it. It didn't look like a whole lot, it was more frames than video, but it was a very big point in the Kirby franchise, finally giving our pink little blob a voice. Togezo, Rolling Turtle, Gip, and Capsule J Disappearance. There's very few enemies in the Kirby franchise that have been erased. I mean erased as in completely removed or replaced in their game's remakes. Unfortunately though, we do have some. We've got Rolling Turtle and Togezo from Kirby's Adventure, and they were completely removed from their remakes, meaning we'll never see them again, and Capsule J had the same thing happen, but being from Kirby Superstar instead. These are the only enemies to have been replaced or removed from games, and it kinda stinks. I mean, the first two ones, Rolling Turtle and Togezo, their designs are very much like Mario designs. It'd be nice to have them around, but, you know, it's okay that they're gone. Capsule J, though, looks like it would have been a really cool-looking character. That would have been really cool to see in a modern game. I don't know why they had to get rid of him, but we'll most likely never see any of these three again. Kirby Right Back at Ya Shell Shock English Dubbed. Episode 88 of Kirby Right Back at Ya wasn't fully aired for quite a long time. It originally aired back in 2005, but was cut off at the ending with This Week's Baseball. and that was the only version of the episode available until a single airing in 2006. And that airing in 2006 was lost for quite a long time. Due to stations not wanting to air a version with a cutoff end and the show just getting too old, it was rare that these would ever get aired, and it was doubted that the 2006 episode would ever get out there. It was the only one of the English dub that was fully not available. That was until in 2015 when YouTuber Operation Hoshi no Kabi re-uploaded the entire episode. It was off a recording back done in 2006, so it's not perfect quality, but it's certainly good enough. Before it was taken down by YouTube, sites like Dailymotion got a hold of it, and now it's safely on the internet. Superstar NES Prototype. Kirby Superstar was released for the SNES, but there's a version of it for the NES. A prototype of the game, and it looked like it was decently far in production. I mean, the animations were well made, the sprites for Kirby seemed finished, but outside of attacking, there wasn't a whole lot. So why does this version exist? Well, it turns out HAL was trying to get dev kits for the SNES, but they were taking so long to get delivered, they decided to start making the game on the NES, and just poured over all their progress. They could have probably waited a few weeks, but they just wanted to get a head start on the game. So now we can see what a version of the game might have looked like on the NES. Kirby TV Channel. The Kirby TV Channel was an online WiiWare app released for only PAL regions in June of 2011, and it was a pretty nice app. It let people watch 2 episodes of Kirby Right Back at Ya a week, but it got shut down very fast. December 1st of the same year, its services shut down, meaning people could only use it for around 5 months. It was brought back briefly in April of 2012, and then ended for good in September of the same year. With the short runtime of the app, the episode count only got up to 51, meaning since the entire series had 100 episodes, people using the app only got to see a little over half the series. Mass Attack Unused Enemies. Kirby Mass Attack revolves around controlling tons of miniature Kirbys going around and defeating enemies, clearing puzzles, stuff you'd normally do in a Kirby game. But a lot of enemies were cut from the game, and when I say a lot, I mean a lot. And we still have most of their sprites and animations. Looking at the cut enemies, there's Blipper, Block Dragon, Bubblefish, Carrion, Kittery, Gordo, Bobber, Hammer Knight, Hoppin, large variants of Bloston, Mossy, and Stickle, Itago, Revelry, Rocketon, Spiky, Shuffler, Torapon, Uhuru, UFO, Upsea, and variants of Blam Boom, Dice, Lady Ivy, Mole, and Stickle. All of those enemies were cut, and we still have all of their sprites and animations. They were worked on quite a bit. Normally, a couple enemies being cut from a Kirby game wouldn't be much news. I wouldn't go over those. But the fact that so many were cut and so many of them seemed very well made is kind of insane. It was said by the developers that they had to cut so many enemies from the game to make sure the game was streamlined on copy abilities better. Their original vision for having all of these enemies and possibly having a copy ability for all these enemies, that would have just been insane. I can't imagine what that version of the game would have looked like. Kirby Dance Song in Kirby 64. Kirby 64 stands out as one of the few Kirby games to not have a dance at the end of the level, and it seems like this wasn't originally going to be the case. There's an unused song for the dance left over in the files, and it sounds perfectly fine. I'll be playing it now, and as you can hear, it sounds perfect. I don't know why they decided to scrap the ending dance, considering they already had the music for it. It just makes Kirby 64 stand out that little bit more. Tier 6. GameCube models reused in Brawl trophies. The cancelled GameCube Kirby games I mentioned earlier in the video did have a good amount of production put into it. Like I showed at the beginning, there was images of some models pretty well done, and instead of completely scrapping these models, they were reused for trophies in Smash Bros. Melee. So in a way, we did get parts of the GameCube games, just in Smash instead of an actual Kirby game. Limited Edition Game Boy. There are only 25 of these limited edition Kirby Game Boys known to exist. They're a part of a Prince Giant Mallows promotion sponsored by Jacob's Bakery, a British company. And with them being so old, these pictures of the eBay auction being from 2014, and with their limited count, they would fetch an insane price. But one hasn't been listed since that eBay listing in 2014. Taking a look at eBay now is just nothing. If one of these Game Boys comes back into circulation, it'll likely go insanely high in value. It's just crazy thinking that there's only 25 of these out there, and we only have a handful of images for them. Single Squishy in Amazing Mirror. In the entirety of Kirby and the Amazing Mirror, there is only one squishy enemy. That's right, this one squishy here, this one squid guy, is all by himself. And for some reason, this trend of only having one unique standard enemy in the entire game wasn't just for that game. Planet Robobot only had a single whippy enemy, and there's also non-Kirby Nintendo games that do this trend as well, like Super Mario Bros. 2, having one single red Sniffit in the entire game. I don't know why they kept this trend up, it sure is interesting, but it's kinda sad. They're the only of their kind. Token. This is Token, a cut enemy from Kirby's Amazing Mirror, or so we thought. We don't know a whole lot about them aside from their sprites seen here. Some people say they resemble a wind-up clock, and I kind of see that, but not entirely. It sucks not knowing what this character was gonna be because their designs are so similar to Waddle Dee or Kirby from the older games. A character like this would have been a reoccurring one, and oh, this isn't Token. In 2023, it was discovered that this character is Stoppy, another cut enemy that there was code for, but we didn't know what they looked like until now. It turns out Token was just an early name for the Bang Bang enemy. This was a massive mix-up of misnaming until 2023. And that's it for the Kirby Iceberg. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope Air Riders is fun if you're coming to this video either preparing for that or you've been playing that. And if you're here completely unrelated to that new release, thank you for watching as well. This will be the last upload before this behemoth of a Five Nights at Freddy's video I'm gonna start working on comes out. Should be around the normal time for a video, maybe a bit longer. I hope you guys are excited for that. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day, week, month, and I'll see you in the next one.